Hiranyavarunam harinim suvarna rajatasrajam chandram hiranmayim lakshmim jatavedoma avaha Shriye jatashriya aniryaya shriyam vayo janitrubhyo dadhatu Shriyam vasana amritatvamayan bhajanti sadhya savita amritatyun Shriya evainam tatshriya madatati santatam mricha vashatkritya sandhattam sandhiyate prajaya pashubihi Evam veda mahadevyai cha vidmahe vishnupatnyai cha dhimahi Tanno Lakshmi Prachodayat. Wish you all a very happy Navaratri. In Bharata Desha, we celebrate two Navaratris. There is one Navaratri which is called Vasanta Navaratri. And the second is Sharad Navaratri. The Vasanta Navaratri celebrated during Vasanta Rutu leads to Sri Ramanavami. The Sharad Navaratri that is celebrated in Sharad Rutu leads to Vijayadasami. Incidentally and interestingly, both the Navaratris are connected in Ramayana. One Navaratri leads to Sri Ramanavami, the other Navaratri leads to Vijayadasami when Rama conquered Ravana and vanquished him. Navaratri is celebrated in so many different ways across Bharata. Different traditions, different regions have very varied forms of celebrating Navaratri. But the underlying reason for celebrating Navaratri remains the same. Navaratri not only means 9 Ratris. Nava can mean the number 9. Nava can also mean new. Therefore, Navaratri actually means new Ratri. All the nights are dark nights. Now, Navaratri is new night. What do we mean by new night? A dark night can become a new night only when it paves the way for light. So therefore, the lives, the innumerable, the countless lives that we have lived in our journey of samsara all represent Ratris, dark nights. This very life is an opportunity for the dark night to be converted into a new night that can pave way for light, for us to attain moksha. So significance of Navaratri, therefore, is to seek jnana, that light which will help us attain moksha. When we talk about seeking jnana, seeking knowledge, knowledge to take place requires 3 factors. 3 factors are required for knowledge to take place. The first factor is the subject. The subject who is the knower. I am the knower. I am the subject, the knower. Therefore, the Atman is the knower, the experiencer, the subject of knowledge. That is one primary factor. If I am not there, there is no knowledge that can take place. So I, the subject, the knower, the one who knows, is the first factor for knowledge to take place. The second factor for knowledge to take place is the object of knowledge. The object that I know is the second factor. Now I have the subject, I have the object. The third factor is the means of knowledge. So therefore, for knowledge to take place, 3 factors are essential: the knower, the means of knowledge, and the object of knowledge. Now, these 3 factors, when we reflect on our day-to-day experiences, it becomes very clear how all these three factors come into play in the process of knowledge taking place. Let's take a very simple example. The knowledge of sound. There is a sound that takes place, that emanates from somewhere, from one corner. So the object of knowledge, the sound is there. Now obviously, the subject, I have to be somewhere in the vicinity, so that there can be the knowledge of sound that can take place. If I am not there in the vicinity, then there can be no knowledge of sound. So the subject, the knower, I am also in the vicinity of the sound, the object of knowledge. Now, the means of knowledge, the means in this case is my indriya, my ears. I need the indriya of my ears so that I can acquire the object of knowledge. Now, while the subject, the knower, and the object are very clear, crystal clear, we need to little bit dwell deeper on the means of knowledge. Why? Now let's say a sound happens and the subject, the knower, I am very much in the vicinity. The object is there, the subject is there. It is not guaranteed that the knowledge will take place. Why? Because I may not hear the sound. Now, if I have not heard the sound, immediately one can say, you have to better test your ears. Let's say I go and test my ears, and it is also proven that I have capable indriyas to hear. Now, the subject, the knower is there, the object of knowledge is there, the ears in this case, the means of knowledge is also there, but knowledge has not taken place. Is it possible? Very much possible. No. Many times I may be speaking and you may be in a different world. The subject, the object are there, knowledge has not taken place. Forget about the sound. For a long period it happens. Then what could be the reason? The reason is the indriyas are there, but there is something which is beyond the indriyas which need to be there, which is the mind, the manas. So therefore, when we look at the means of knowledge beyond the superficial indriyas, manas has to be there. Manas has to be there. No, manas is there. The mind is always there. But is it absent-minded? We say we are absent-minded. So to say we are absent-minded is wrong. Mind is never absent. It is only fails to be in the present. Mind is always there. It fails to be in the present. Therefore, when the mind fails to be in the present, when the mind does not support the indriyas, then knowledge cannot take place. Now, the object of knowledge is there, the subject, the knower is also there. Now we have clearly understood the means of knowledge, indriyas, with a mind which is present, which is not absent, is very much there. Is it enough for knowledge to take place? Now we need to reflect on this a little bit more. From our own satsangs, it's very clear. Many times when I speak, it's a bouncer for many of you. The subject is there, the object is there, indriyas are there, even the mind is also attentive. You also sincerely are trying to listen, but still it can become a bouncer. Many times it happens. An attentive mind is very much needed, no doubt, but even if an attentive mind is there, knowledge may not take place. Why is the question. Now, I want to learn nuclear physics, and therefore I choose to attend the lectures of the topmost nuclear physicists in the world. I enroll myself and I start attending the lectures of the nuclear physicist every day. Now, I have an able body with all my eyes and ears, everything working properly. I have complete sincerity, interest. So my mind is also brought into concentration, attentive mind. I know English, I know math, I attend. Every day I attend. I am very attentive. The nuclear physicist best in the world is teaching nuclear physics. But does the knowledge of nuclear physics take place in me? Will not. Why? Because along with an attentive mind, there is one more prerequisite. A prepared mind. If I do not have adequate knowledge of mathematics, if I do not have adequate knowledge of physics, if I do not have adequate knowledge of chemistry, even if I attend series of lectures on nuclear physics with an attentive mind, knowledge of nuclear physics is not going to take place. So therefore, along with an attentive mind, we need a mind which is prepared. The mind needs to be prepared with the prerequisites needed for the required knowledge to take place. Now let's extend this to the knowledge of the Atman. Atma Jnana. No, we all talk about self-realization. Being self-aware. Attaining the state of a sthita prajna. Attaining the state of a jnani. Attaining the state of one who has realized oneself. The subject, the knower, I am there. The object of knowledge is also there. The means, which is the mind, even if it is attentive, has to be prepared. If the mind is not prepared, knowledge will not take place. Therefore, what we see throughout the Gita, we see at several instances throughout the Gita, the topic of preparing the mind is dealt with. Krishna takes up this topic. Of course, chapter 5 and 6 are exclusively spent on mind mastery, no doubt. But across the Gita we see, because when we talk about any sadhana, karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga, foundational to every sadhana is preparing the mind. If the mind is not adequately prepared, there is no way we can know ourselves. It is very easy to say, I should know myself, but to know myself, the mind needs to be prepared, because the mind not only should function like a window to the world, it also should function as a mirror. Now this is the beauty of the mind. The mind has dual function. It is no doubt our window to the world. Why do I say that? How do we perceive the world? How do we engage with the world? Our sense organs bring stimuli from the world, from the outer world. The outer world sends stimuli through our sense organs. The mind puts these stimuli together, integrates them, and presents the picture of the outer world to us. Therefore, the mind is like a window. If I am able to perceive the outer world, the mind is like a window which brings the stimuli from the external world, integrates the stimuli, and presents it to me. Now, unfortunately, we know that the mind is not just another window. It is like the high-tech window which also has a screen that it can play. Sometimes what we see is not what the world wants us to see, but what the mind wants us to see. So it also plays its own movies. Now, more importantly, apart from being the window to the world, the mind also needs to act as a mirror. Most often, the mind, inside it is dark. It's like we are sitting in a dark room looking at the world outside and interacting with the world. Yes, the mind is bringing the stimuli from outside and we are engaging with the world, but still internally it's dark and we are unaware of our own self. We are only engaging with the world based on just the content in the mind. The mind is dark. It doesn't act like a mirror. The mind has to start also acting like a mirror for what? To reflecting ourselves. We need to start knowing who we are. It is the same mind which also will reflect who we are. Unfortunately, the mind does reflect now and then, but it reflects a distorted image of who we are. Once in a while, we get to see ourselves in the mind, But what we see is not what we are, but what the world defines us as to who we are. So we still see mind as a mirror, but as a distorted image. We all know sometimes we go into exhibition and fairs and we have this hall of mirrors, where all mirrors are distorted and we get to go and see a horror picture of our own who we are, right? That's exactly what our mind does. Whatever we see as who we are is mind's distorted view of who we are. So the mind sometimes functions as a mirror, but as a distorted mirror. So therefore, what is this preparation that we are talking about? The preparation is preparing the mind not only to act as an able window. It has to act as an able window, no doubt. It also has to act as a clean mirror. A clean mirror that reflects us as we are. That is when we can understand our own true nature. And when we understand, then the internal landscape is no longer dark. Otherwise, the internal landscape is always dark, and we get to engage with the external landscape depending on what the mind brings inside. Only when the internal landscape is lit and the mind starts to reflect us, we start to realize our own true nature. So when we talk about self-realization, when we talk about knowing ourselves, it is about preparing our mind, cleaning it up so that it acts as a faithful mirror which reflects us as we are, reflects us in all true glory. And when we start to see ourselves, darshana is seeing. When we say seeing ourselves, which means experiencing ourselves, knowing our true nature. And when we start to experience ourselves, know ourselves, that is when the way we deal with the external world will also significantly change. So Krishna here is, when he is talking about leading us towards self-realization, leading us towards Atma Sakshatkara, he is helping to prepare this mind, cleaning the mind, preparing the mind so that it becomes a faithful mirror and also a faithful window. After Shloka 50, from Shloka 51 onwards, we see how Krishna starts talking about how while being engaged in the world, we can still get, do not get entangled with the world. Engagement with the world and entanglement with the world are two different things. Unfortunately for us, both come together. When we engage, we get entangled. Both come together. But Krishna teaches how we can stay engaged but not entangled. We can be in the world, but we need not be worldly. We don't need to be immersed in worldliness. Being self-aware is so very important for us to be aware of Krishna. Because after all, it's like peeling, if the most often used analogy, peeling various layers. To know who I am, I start peeling my layers. I am not my body. I am not my indriyas. I am not my mind. I am not my prana. I am not my intellect. Who I am the Atman. Who I am a part of Paramatman. Peeling various layers, and this is exactly what is happening in the 18th chapter. He is teaching Karma Yoga, he is teaching Swadharma, and in the process of doing Swadharma, I gain knowledge of my own self and I get rooted in self-awareness. Now, Shloka 51 started in terms of summarizing the principles he taught in the 2nd chapter, Sthita Prajna. Principles he taught in the 14th chapter, Gunatita. Principles he taught in the 13th chapter, Viveki, Jnani. And in the 12th chapter, a great Bhakta. All of this put together in 3 shlokas he is summarizing. 51, 52, 53. He is essentially bringing all of this together, and he is making one point. Hey Arjuna, you can remain doing your Swadharma, doing your occupation, doing your duties, and still reach a state, Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate, state of Naishkarmya, state of self-realization. This is exactly what he is summarizing here. Vivikta Sevi Lagvashi. The shloka number 52. Vivikta Sevi Lagvashi. He is now continuing where he left off in shloka 51. There he talked about the need for the mind, the buddhi to be pure, where the need for mastering one's own self, the need for giving up engagement with this attachment to the various sense objects, the need to rise above raga and dvesha. These were what he covered shloka 51. Now he is continuing the same discussion in shloka 52 and shloka 53. Vivikta Sevi Lagvashi. Essentially here he is talking about how, while we all talk about being in touch with the world, please stay in touch. This is what we say. Yes, staying in touch with the world is important, but are we staying in touch with ourselves? Most often I keep asking this question. We have several appointments in our calendars, but do we take an appointment of ourselves? When we look at our own calendars, do we have adequate slots where we take appointment with ourselves, where we keep in touch with ourselves? This is essentially Vivikta Sevi. Being lonely is not being alone. There is a big difference. Being lonely means we are dependent on the world. Being alone is, even when we are amidst a crowd, Atmanyevatmana Tushtaha. It is the ability to bring a distance between the world, the worldly ways, and ourselves. We need to be very, very clear on this. Nowhere in the Gita Krishna says walk away from the world. Even when he says Vivikta Sevi, he is not saying completely run away and shut the doors and be inside to yourself. We can be, from once in a while, yes, we have to have our alone time. But that does not mean escaping the world. Vivikta Sevi here is, even when we are engaged with the world, our ability to bring the distance between us and the worldly ways. Ability to bring a distance between us and from people who are engaged in materialism. Essentially, preventing ourselves getting dragged into materialism. This is Vivikta. If we are not watchful, it is very easy for us to get carried away, get dragged, because the forces of this world are very formidable. So constantly we need to be watchful of that distance between us and the worldly ways. Watch my words. I'm not saying distance between us and the world. We cannot build any distance because we are in the world. We have to be in the world. The only time when we can build a distance between us and the world of Prakriti is when we exit Prakriti Mandala and attain Vaikuntha. Until then, we have to be in the world. But we can build a distance between us and worldly ways. Indulgence in the world. This is where it becomes very important. He says that distance is going to help us get in touch with our own selves. We all are every day looking for news, outer news. We are switched on. There are hundreds of channels, whether we like it or not, notifications keep coming. Just like how we engage with outer news, Vivikta Sevi is also be updated with the inner news. Are we updated with inner news? What is inner news? What is happening inside? We are very, very updated on what is happening outside. The war that is happening out there, Israel and Palestine, the war happening out there, we are on a minute by minute basis, we are updated. There is a war happening inside. Are we updated? Vivikta Sevi is constantly being aware of the inner war that is happening. If we are unaware of the inner war, we are going to lose. We are going to lose. Our vasanas are going to win. So therefore, he says, Vivikta Sevi Lagvasi. Krishna keeps coming back every time, when we get into festivities, he says Lagvasi. He knows that in satsang there are 3 sweets. So therefore he says 3 sweets are fine, but watch out. If you have 3 sweets today, for another 3 days, better avoid. Lagvasi, moderation. Yuktahara viharasya, yuktachetasya karmasu. Yuktahara. Essentially what he is saying is, listen to the body, not to the mind. When it comes to food, we are always listening to the mind, not to the body. The body keeps giving signals, enough, enough. Unfortunately, the body is not loud enough, because the mind will make us stay hungry even after eating, because the mind wants to hoard more and more. So the problem is, the body is giving signals, the mind is bringing these signals, and when it is presenting these signals, it also adds its own signals. It says, you have had a good time, but you can have a little bit more. So we keep listening to the mind signals. Krishna basically is saying, stop listening to your mind signal. Your body is designed. Krishna has designed our body. Body gives signals. It's just that sometimes we miss the signals. After 2 laddus, enough. The body says enough. But the mind says, maybe try once more. And we end up. So, yuktahara viharasya, moderation. Also, yukta is a beautiful word, right? One is balanced, regulated. Yukta also is to unite. Therefore, ahara is required for yoga. Krishna never says, fast all the time. Fast all the time, you can never do yoga. The body will become so weak. Ahara is required for yoga, but we take ahara for bhoga. This is the only difference. So he says, Vivikta sevi laghvasi. He says, Yata vakaya manasaha. The reason why we experience discomfort all the time in our day-to-day lives, there is always that discomfort. Why? Because our thought, our speech, and our action are never aligned. Never aligned. This is the reason why we are always in a state of discomfort. It is like, physically giving an analogy, always walking with one leg. We are never steady. Imagine we always walk with one leg. We will be unsteady all the time. Why? Because it is not our nature. Naturally, we have to be walking with 2 legs. Now, when our thought, our speech, and our action are not aligned, it's like walking with one leg. We will never have inner harmony, and the moment we bring that alignment, magic happens. Simple example, many times we know what is right here, but we may even know what is right when we speak. Doing is not aligned. Sometimes we know what is right here, but while saying, we may have to say things differently, doing differently. So we see this misalignment at several stages in several ways. Essentially, he says, Yata va kaya manasaha. Control all the 3 means bring them together. And he says, Dhyana yoga paro nityam. Nityam, do dhyana yoga. Nityam. Essentially, Krishna has given us a wonderful formula for meditation. There are several ways of meditation, and the beautiful form and the easy form of meditation is upasana. Yoginam api sarvesham adgatena antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yo mam sameyukta thamo mataha. He extends the scope of meditation to include devotion, emotion, and action. Because without acting, it's very difficult for us. Without emotions, it's very difficult for us. So when we are told to meditate devoid of emotion, devoid of action, we struggle. Meditation devoid of emotion, devoid of action. Many meditation courses that are taught focus on the dot on the screen. Bring your eyebrows together and focus. Krishna also teaches that meditation, but that meditation is not sustainable. Even if you sustain, apart from bringing peace, it doesn't help anything more. So Krishna expands the scope of this meditation. He says, bring in emotion, which is natural to us. Emotion of love. Bring in action. Kainkarya to Krishna. When we extend the scope of dhyana, bringing emotion of love and kainkarya, action together, service to him, which means we can be in a meditative state all the time. We don't need to just sit and do dhyana for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour. We can be in a state of dhyana throughout whatever we do. And that's exactly what Krishna is asking. Dhyana yoga paro nityam vairagyam samupashritaha. Vairagya is detachment. We keep talking about detachment, as to how vairagya is exactly the opposite of raga. Exactly the opposite of raga. This raga is essentially because of our apurnatva. We need to recognize this. Ajnana leads to apurnatva. Apurnatva results in raga and kama, and that leads to karma. Why? Because when I feel apurna, when I'm feeling incomplete, then I feel the need, the craving to get something. When I feel purna, when I am feeling complete, then I have no more cravings. Now, how do I address that root cause? Therefore, I need to fill. There is a vacuum within me, a vacuum of incompleteness. I need to fill that. I can fill that very easily with love for Krishna, making me purna. And when I become purna, then it is very easy for me to cultivate vairagya. Otherwise, raga is something which is very natural to me. Vairagya is when I become purna, filled with love for Krishna. Ahankaram balam darpam kamam krodham apparigraham. Not apparigraham, parigraham. Apparigraha is opposite of parigraha. Ahankaram balam darpam. He is continuing the sequence of the key principles to cultivate, to reach a state of Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. To reach a state of realizing our own nature, self-awareness, the state of Astita Prajna, a state of Gunatita, a state of a Jnani, a state of a Viveki. Ahankaram balam darpam. Ahankara is doership. So right in the 18th chapter, right at the beginning, Krishna addresses this very clearly. We just need to pause and reflect. Did Krishna really talk about non-doership? 18th chapter, the first segment of 18th chapter is all about non-doership. How to overcome ahankara. Ahankara means doership. I am the doer. Ahamkara, I am the doer. Krishna clearly says, the soul, S-O-U-L, is a doer, no doubt, but the soul, S-O-U-L, is not the soul doer, S-O-L-E. The only way to rise above ahankara is to realize that I am a doer, but I am not the sole doer. Why I am the doer? I am the desirer. Whether I acknowledge it or not, I am the desirer. I have desires. When I have a desire, I will seek to fulfill the desire. Therefore, I am a doer, no doubt. But the doership is not individual. Panchaitani mahabaho karanani nibodame. Adhishthanam tata karta karanam cha pratak vidham vividhas cha pratak cheshtaha daivam chaivatra panchamam. 5 doers Krishna talks about. 5 causal factors for any action. Adhishthanam, the body. Adhishthanam tata karta, the Atman. Karanam cha pratak vidham, karanam, all the sense organs. Vividhas cha pratak cheshta, the pancha pranas. Daivam Paramatma. In every action that we do, there are 5 doers, 5 causal factors. If that is the case, hey Arjuna, how can you claim that you are the doer? You are one amongst the doers. You are not the sole doer. You are one amongst the 5 doers. So therefore here, ahankara, the only way we can conquer this ahankara is to keep repeating to ourselves, I am not the sole doer. I am not. Ahankaram balam darpam. Balam is strength that is misused. Strength that is misused in terms of violence. Here violence means not just physical violence, verbal violence, mental violence. All of this will lead always to a state. We have to keep reminding why Krishna is highlighting all these points. Essentially, when we practice all of this, what we are doing, we are cleaning, preparing the mind. We have to go back and look at how each of this is helping prepare the mind so that the mind can reflect our true nature. Until the mind is prepared, it cannot reflect our true nature. So therefore, if there is ahankara, then the dirt of ahankara is covering the mind. When there is bala, ahimsa, the dirt of ahimsa is covering the mirror of the mind. Ahankaram, balam, darpam, pride, arrogance. Attachment no doubt makes us blind, but arrogance ensures that we stay blind. So this arrogance, this darpa, is more dangerous, that it will keep us always blind. Ignorance of our ignorance. Pride is highly tamasic in nature. So Krishna says that this is not ordinary dirt. This is very, very strong dirt that needs to be really scraped with lot of effort. Ahankaram, balam, darpam, kamam, krodham, parigraham. Kama, krodha. These are two things which rule us and also ruin us. Kama, lust, krodha, anger, which is the manifestation of lust. Kamam, krodham, parigraha. Parigraha is greed, selfishness, which is exactly the opposite of our true nature. The opposite of our true nature, parigraha, is always wanting to grab. Aparigraha, always wanting to give up. Aparigraha is our true nature. Parigraha is exactly the opposite. But when we are identified with the body, we are always trying to do things for the sake of. That is why selfishness is doing everything for sense gratification. Parigraha. Vimuchya. Nirmamah shantaha. Vimuchya, freedom. This vimuchya has to be applied to all of this. Freedom from ahankara, freedom from balam, freedom from kama, freedom from krodha, freedom from parigraha, freedom from nirmamaha, freedom from mamaha. No, nirmamaha. The nirmamaha is freedom from false conception that we can own everything. No, we think we can own. In reality, we own nothing. So therefore, nirmamaha, mamakara, freedom from mamakara, shantaha, peace, peace of mind. It is very important to understand that when we seek mental peace, we are all seeking mental peace. Throughout every day, we are saying, can I have some peace of mind? I need mental peace. But Krishna very clearly says, when we seek mental peace, it's like we are seeking painkillers. So to take the analogy of a disease, yes, we can temporarily, kind of, manage a disease by giving painkillers. But we need a curative medicine. So if seeking peace is like, mental peace is like taking painkillers, then what is the curative medicine? The curative medicine is seeking purpose, not seeking peace. Because when we seek a spiritual purpose, mental peace automatically comes as a byproduct. Shantaha, to have eternal mental peace, is when we seek a spiritual purpose. The spiritual purpose of staying connected with Krishna, lovingly serving Him. That's the spiritual purpose. When we seek to fulfill that purpose, mental peace becomes a byproduct. No, we need to look at taking a curative medicine and not a painkiller. Brahma bhuyaya kalpate. When one practices all of this, one becomes a sthita prajna, one with a steady mind, one who overcomes the dualities of life. When we are engaged, when we are on the ground, the summits and the valleys, we can see stark difference between a summit and a valley. But then imagine we start flying like a bird. We can still see the summits and the valleys, but we see a beautiful picture. The valleys do not disturb us, nor do the summits excite us. When we are flying up above the sky, the summits are there, the valleys are there, but we learn to transcend both the summits and the valleys. Bhakti gives us the wings to fly high in the sky, in the spiritual sky. And there we see still the summits and the valleys of life. Duggeshu anudvignamana, sukeshu vigataspraha, vita raga bhayakroda, Sthitadhir muniruchyate. Sthitadhi, the dhi, the mind, the buddhi, the mind, the intelligence to be sthita, to be one endowed with an equanimous mind, one who is not easily disturbed by the dualities, one who is calm, peaceful, where the mind functions like a faithful mirror and reflects. Imagine the day we can actually see our own beautiful self in the mirror. Won't we be pleased? We will be pleased. All of us want to see a beautiful version of our own self. And a mind which reflects that is the mind that we need to cultivate diligently. And Krishna gives us the 3 shlokas. He summarizes this whole sadhana of preparing that mind. And when we prepare that mind, we reach a state where we start to experience ourselves. That is shloka number 53. 54, he makes the transition from Atma Sakshatkara to Paramatma Sakshatkara. And shloka 55, he starts to summarize the beautiful sadhana of Bhakti Yoga. This we will relish in the next session. Until then, let us continue to contemplate on the message of Navaratri, which we started discussing right at the beginning. Navaratri is not just about celebration of 9 days. Navaratri, new night. In a dark night can become a new night only when it paves the way for light. And may this very life become a Navaratri for us, which can take us towards light, the light of Sri Paramapada Vaikuntha. Jai Sri Krishna. Sarvam Sri Krishna Arpanamastu.